I'm
And
sorry
where you're
that
located.
absolutely. We're going live now. Okay, it looks like we are currently streaming. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll kick this off. Alrighty. Well, welcome everyone to yet another town hall. This is the September 15th, 2023 Friday meeting. I'm going to just split out my notes from my other tabs here real quick. So we've got a couple of posts of note on the hub. There are a couple of things that I'd like to draw particular attention to. And then we have some outstanding action items that we need to discuss. Before we get into that, though, Tamara raised, I think, a good point. We should take just a moment every now and then just to remind people who are maybe new to the community of who we are and, generally what we're doing here. I can go ahead and kick things off. My name's Adam Jennings. I am a physical therapist by training. I joined the e-NABLE community in a more official capacity last year as e-NABLE's outreach coordinator. I've recently taken over these town hall meetings from Jeremy. We're kind of shuffling some responsibilities here and there, trying to lighten the load where it's needed. I will also say that I am also one of the co-founders of an organization called Wildmont, which is run also by Mr. Jason Tennyson, who's also on the line. Wildmont has taken on a great deal of project work, including fundraising activities and some specific partnership activities over the past few months. More on that later in this meeting because we need to resubmit for community approval. We are at 3 months. Oh, yep, go ahead. We can allow that Fathom recorder, John. But let's move on to Jeremy. Jeremy, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Jeremy Simon. Been with e-NABLE for, it's been over 10 years now. I'm one of the co-founders along with John, who's here as well. And, I've played a number of roles in the community, including making devices for recipients, but nowadays I help out more behind the scenes. And a lot of that is related to infrastructure, helping to maintain the systems that support our community, like the hub and the e-NABLE Web Central matching platform, which may be replaced with a new one eventually, but the help desk system, we have a sort of a live chat bot, if you will, that answers common questions and those sorts of things. I tend to help maintain that infrastructure and help with these meetings, just kind of help out where I can to support the community.
Awesome. John, do you want to go next?
Sure. I too am a co-founder of e-NABLE. I have played more of a role of evangelist and organizer while Jeremy actually keeps the ship of state afloat. But we've both been here for quite some time, and I have to say I'm very glad to see how well Adam and Jason are doing at picking up the lead and taking us in new directions.
All right, and then let's, well, Jason, why don't you go ahead and give a brief intro. Good morning, by the way.
Good morning. All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Hello, everyone. I'll put a face to the name here as well. My name is Jason Tennyson. As Adam mentioned, I'm working with him under the umbrella of Wildmont. I'm a registered nurse by background, and my chief role here is to take the lead on fundraising and do some additional outreach activities. So happy to be here and happy to meet you all.
All righty. And then I think Tainara was on a moment ago. Hey, yeah, there you are. Hey, Tainara, do you want to say hi? Or are you unable to speak right now?
Hi.
Hi.
How are you guys?
Doing well. Tainara is an occupational therapist. She's based in Brazil, and she is leading up our efforts to create a more focused healthcare community within the e-NABLE network. We're really excited about where that's going to go. Yeah, and then I think Sarah, is that you under e-NABLE events?
Hi.
Can you briefly describe your role?
I am the e-NABLE communications coordinator. I took over for Ben Rubin almost a year ago now. And I help with all sorts of different communications initiatives, the newsletter that people get every month, coordinating the calendar and our monthly programming, and reaching out to different chapters and to people when they join and post on the hub, and helping people with different projects and initiatives, and any tasks that involve writing and sort of other behind the scenes projects. And I have a background in journalism and public health.
Alrighty, so that's it for the folks who are generally in quote unquote leadership positions. It looks like we've got a couple of other people online. Hi, Saad, how you doing?
Hi, hello. I'm very new to this. We just got started in Singapore. This is my first town hall meeting, so I'm not entirely familiar with how things
You're
go.
fine. You're fine. We're pretty we're pretty easy breezy with especially with introductions. We love having as many people as we can on the line. So did you just create a chapter in Singapore? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a bit of a false start, and we've been doing sort of bringing assistive technology closer to people who need it. We've been working with persons with disabilities and their caregivers to do 3D printing, not necessarily for prosthesis and prosthetics and things like that, but smaller things. And now we've built the confidence to be able to take on prosthetics as well. So we're just about getting started there.
That's great. Well, very happy to have you. We have a number of meetings on the calendar each month. We have right now these weekly town halls. We also have hosted by Tainara, our monthly healthcare meetings. We have a monthly new member meetup, which I believe is also combined with our education group meetings, as well as a bionic design group, and maybe a couple of other things here and there. We try to bring in guest speakers and some other things each month as well. So it's plenty to do, plenty to listen in on. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to, just drop a ping here during this line. Or if you have a question, feel free to speak up. There's no, we don't really have like a rule against that, certainly. And then if you have any other questions, the hub is there for community support. So if you need directions to the hub or instructions on how to register or get involved, just let us know.
Thank you again for the welcome. I mean, that I've been trying to spool up on the discussion that's been going on in the forum, and it sounds like there's a vibrant community, and it sounds like, again, that you've got a very inclusive atmosphere. So, I mean, I'm very happy to see that there is this kind of added atmosphere.
Yeah, no, we're thrilled to have you. Thank you. Well, let's dance right through the to-do list here. We've got a number of posts from the hub this week. I am going to queue those up real quick. Thank you, Sarah, for getting these prepped. First, we've got Mohammed, a 17-year-old. This is Mohammed Solman. Also, I should know, my apologies, gang. There were a couple of items on my to-do list. I want to just knock this out at the top. I came down with food poisoning this week and was completely out of commission for a few days. So my apologies if there's something that we're working on together that I've dropped the ball on. I'm doing my best to play catch up now. So if there's some things on here that are still outstanding from last week, I'm going to go ahead and blame that. But let's get into it. Mohammed Suleiman asks, they're a 17-year-old, or they have a 17-year-old who lost part of the print on their right hand and little finger. Like, the most important programs for working, designing, registry. Maybe it might have been a mistype, possibly. Or maybe that's something that I don't. So I'm not clear whether they already had a device and they've misplaced it. Or if they want one for the first time. Regardless, it sounds like they need a new device. And it looks as though one person has replied a couple of times and they're looking for specifically CAD programs to use. And I don't know what Mohammed's familiarity with CAD is, but it looks like Boris offered to assist with adapting the design at no cost. That's really nice. Okay, no response yet. It's been a few days. We should follow up here. Okay, and then we've got. Oh, same question, just posted a different way. More detail was offered in the second post. Okay, we've got a Saul Fox. I feel like I've seen Saul before. Maybe I'm confusing with someone else. My name is Saul in Matric in South Africa. Gosh, I hope I said that right. Head of Handprints SA, an NPO that uses 3D printing and manufacture process. Oh, well, that's great. Looks like they're just posting some of the work they're doing using e-NABLE design. I mean, this is an unlimited arm and a Phoenix sand, right? By the look of it.
I would be very interested to see if they did any videos or anything like that with it as well.
That'd be nice. South Africa is the other side of the continent from Florian, but I wonder if this sounds very similar to the model that they're exploring at Ugani. Looks really cool though. These are really clean. And then Sarah, of course, was right on top of that. Okay, cool. I think that's well and done. We've got another post from Saul. Maybe this is what I was thinking of. 2 devices, found some challenges, wanted to share solutions, and good old Thierry dropped into the comments there. But let's see. Lee Tepes. Gosh, guys, my basic level of functional understanding is really showing here. Jeremy,
they're referring to Lee Tippies, which are the silicone fingertip grips that we include in
oh, gotcha.
our kits. Yeah, so, and they're not, he's right. I mean, I think we're the only distributor for them in the world outside of their office supply chain. So
okay,
they're probably hard to find elsewhere, but that's just what we chose for the kits. You do not have to use those. You can use various types of sort of rubberized coatings. It looks like they're linking to one there. Any kind of you're just looking for some kind of an anti-slip surface. So there are lots of ways of doing that. You can take a pair of rubber gloves and cut the tips off of them. There's people have come up with lots of different solutions for that. This one, I don't know. I guess you could use something like this, but being like a tape, I don't know how well it's going to adhere unless maybe if you wrap it around. I don't know.
Yeah. Plus, that would be asking. I mean, oh boy, yeah, for maintenance. What?
Thierry's suggestion, I think, is a good one. He points out that glue gun glue readily available.
That's a good idea.
And seems promising to me.
So this is, I think I posted this question to the group about a month ago, but on the subject of touchscreen compatibility, do any of these materials work on like a smartphone screen?
That's a good point. I don't believe that the standard materials would. You'd need something conductive for that.
Yeah, because it would be difficult to use these devices to hold the phone, I think, in some cases. So I think it would be maybe a worthwhile avenue to pursue, that if we're looking for function like day to day, having some kind of material that would be able to interact with the touch screen so they can use it in their, assuming they have an intact residual hand.
Yeah, we have done that, and it's not hard. I mean, even a very lightweight thread thick wire that makes contact with your skin, and then, for example, is embedded on the surface of the hot glue would do the trick. It can be done.
Well, I have like cycling gloves that are like for winter that have like just simple pads that I don't think need to be. I don't think it's the contact with my hand that makes them active. Something about the material and the pads on the fingertips allows them to interact with the touchscreen. But again, that's beyond my physical therapist brain to understand how that works.
It's an example of a great project for a kid of any age to research.
Sure. Okay. It looks like I'm just going to do a quick AJ follow-up on this one. Okay. Were there any other posts on the hub that weren't included in this list that anyone wanted to draw attention to before we move on? Go ahead, John.
At some point, I want to review the chapter leaders conversation we had with Zeynep recently.
For sure.
It included the question of fingertip support. And I have mailed her this very thread. There are a number of other topics, but we can get them to them when you want.
Let's go ahead and talk about that now.
Okay. So Zeynep is back in the game, looks much more rested than the last time we have seen her after the earthquake in Turkey. They expect a rush of young people with recent amputations from the February earthquake, and they're getting organized to deal with it. They have asked for a list of best models with links and comments on how to use them. We should have this. It's a short list, but we should compile just a memo about gripper hand, phoenix hand, kinetic hand, etc. Unlimited arm. The short list with the recommended robust solutions and appropriate documentation. I fear that we've forgotten, we have failed to do the simple thing while trying to do many of our ambitious things. So we've got these great big compendia, but she wants us just to give her the bottom line, and we really should do that. So I want to get that on the radar. They're going to be dealing with quantity, I suspect. And Jeremy can answer this, but I don't think the kinetic hand is hard to print. It's the joints themselves which are a challenge. But I'm reminded again that if we could mass produce the flexible joints, then people could really hand out lots and lots of kinetic hands instead of lots and lots of phoenix hands. And I think that's the sweet spot. So I just want to say that Turkey is one of our largest chapters ever. They have a big need, and I'm hoping we can get organized around them to support them. Other topics that we discussed are grant collaboration, and I've written to actually Adam and Jason about this. So I think there's some real opportunities. They also have a documentary that is being made about them, and so it's also a big publicity opportunity. And so Adam and Jason and Jeremy, if you're available, you should catch up on that video. We should circle back and see what we can do to support and frankly capitalize on the magnitude of the need and opportunity in Turkey.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And apologies, John, I haven't seen that yet. Sarah brought that to my attention earlier this week.
That's okay.
But I'll get to that soon. You mentioned a grant collaboration opportunity. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, frankly, I don't remember whether there was something specific, but partnering with an American organization opens windows of opportunity for non-American groups like that. She did say that she was going to look up some grantors that had reached out to her back in the day, but she really didn't have the capacity to deal with it. So that suggests there's an immediate opportunity. And I think that's all I got.
All right.
Well,
Well, I
then,
will. Go ahead.
any-
I was going to kick it to you, Jason. Go ahead.
anytime we're dealing with grants and bringing other folks in, I mean, that's opportunities for other specialties as well. So, with the sort of grant crawlers that we go through, where it lists all of the available grants, some are directly tied to education, or some are tied to
Yeah.
different medical areas, right? So that's where the partnering comes in. And of course, it just adds scale and highlights a need, and being able to tell the local stories from that particular organization. So it's going to help expand some of the categories of grants that we could apply for. Now, what that collaboration would look like, as far as receiving the funds and splitting it up, and obviously we'll have to get something on paper there, but John, you're right on the money here, no pun intended, but this is a good opportunity.
I agree with all of that.
Okay. Well, let's circle back on this next week. We'll cover scheduling things at the end of the call. Let's keep on moving down. Just circling back to our discussions with Florian at Ugani Prothea. We've been having some ongoing discussions offline, he and I, and we're very excited about how we can potentially collaborate to make something mutually beneficial across a couple of different fronts. Speaking of joint fundraising and grant seeking efforts, there are a number of opportunities here where we could partner with Ugani to utilize some of their storytelling materials in our own grant seeking. Basically, they have some really targeted need. For those of you who aren't familiar on the call, Ugani is an organization that was founded just a couple of years ago by a bioengineer by the name of Florian Valles, based in Brussels. They work primarily, they've started in Kenya, and they're beginning to spread across the African continent, looking into a couple of specific regions that have high clusters of people with limb loss of all different stripes, lower extremity, below knee, above knee, upper extremity, below elbow, above elbow, both congenital, which is, a limb difference that was obtained upon birth, or acquired, which would be some form of limb loss. But we're looking into, because Ugani Prothea specifically provides devices for the lower extremity right now, they're using 3D printing technology in these really low overhead settings to churn out a ton of devices to help folks who have no access to prosthetic services. It's a transformative model. They've been wildly successful in reaching a huge number of folks. Right now, after just 2 years in operation, they're the #3 prosthetics provider across the African continent. They are really interested in working with e-NABLE to use a modified e-NABLE design to start providing hands to folks. There are some issues with the hand designs that are available currently. Namely, there are some cosmetic issues, some need for possibly looking into some kind of design that would facilitate a silicone cover, or something that would make it look a little bit more like a natural hand, depending on the specific region, community. Having a hand that looks like it's unnatural is enough to prevent someone from being comfortable wearing it in public and around their community. So that's something that we need to explore. There are also some considerations about how rough and tumble the prints need to be and how functional they need to be, the kind of weight they need to be able to bear, for example. But once we can get some of these wrinkles ironed out, we have some fundraising opportunities that we could explore. They want to provide these e-NABLE hands free of charge. If we could lead some fundraising efforts to provide for having those distributed to folks in these areas, I think that could be a really good use of our community's time. A couple of other areas here, I want to dance right through this. We've got lots of opportunities for exploring some research and documentation to support some of the designs that Ugani is using. A common problem in the African continent is that any research and innovation that's developed there, it's hard to get traction in the international community. There are a number of reasons for that. But collaborating with members in US or EU based educational facilities or others, around the world to churn out some white papers, testing, they were joking on the call the other day that, they can hit their sockets that they print with a hammer and show how sturdy and resilient they are. Nobody's going to care. If somebody from MIT takes a video of them hitting a socket with a hammer, suddenly it's going to blow up in the internet. MIT researchers, unable to destroy this cheaply printed device. So I think that we should see who in our community would be interested in working to stress test some of these things, if that's something that would be of interest. A couple of other things here, remote training initiatives. This is something that I think dovetails nicely with this discussion that we were having with Ultimaker the other day, Jeremy. I think that we could try to find some ways to provide some of this baseline training. For those of you who weren't on last month's town halls where Florian spoke, one of the issues that they're experiencing is that there's not a baseline level of digital understanding for use of computer technology and smartphone technology. They've got these brilliant prosthetists who are able to fabricate these devices. But when it comes to just being able to receive a CAD file from a scanned residual limb and convert that into a printable file so that they can actually fabricate the device, there's a bit of a disconnect there that causes a bottleneck in getting these devices fabricated. So if there were opportunities for members of the e-NABLE community to provide training, or at the very least point their prosthetists to training somewhere online, I think that we could really help to better facilitate having these devices made at volume. And then just circling back to that first point about designs, I think that there's a lot of opportunity to collaborate on if there were an e-NABLE Ugani joint venture in getting something that would maybe be a better fit for the communities that they're looking at across the African continent. We could do this in a couple of different ways. I would really love to see a community design challenge, something that would spur some interest from the broader community and get folks focus on targetable goals for what the new design could look like. But with that, I realize I've been yammering again. Any thoughts on any of these 5 broad items for this Ugani partnership?
I just want to point out here, Adam, just having that hard number for joint fundraising and grant seeking efforts, and that was the point that they made on that call as well. It gives you the facts, hey, $50 per hand, and we think for $50 the impact that you can have. So that's it's a good sales pitch that we have. Yeah. Definite numeric values there, and then shooting for the 1,000 hands, it just gives us a little more structure to what we're looking for. Now, if you apply that to something like maybe a crowdsourcing or what have you, you have a definite goal, and I think it just adds a little more incentive.
My only comment is that we should talk about 1,000 recipients, not 1,000 hands. We've fallen into that trap many times.
Love
of
that.
Finding
That's
devices.
a really great point, John.
And then they don't get there. But I love what you're doing.
That's a really good point. Thank you, John. Any other thoughts on these? I'll be hammering a number of these in the weeks ahead, just because this has become sort of a personal crusade of mine, trying to find something out of this collaboration. But if not, we can move on down. Okay. So just a quick reminder, Tainara, if you want to speak to this, if you're still on the call, is she still on the call? Well, she might have had to drop. Tainara works during this time, so she's frequently unable to jump in without prior notice. But the September healthcare meetings have collapsed from the 2 down to 1, which is on Monday of next week. We've got a speaker who will be coming to address, I believe, some functional experiences of upper extremity amputees and how, I don't know exactly all of the topics that could be covered, but it should be a very interesting discussion, I believe. And again, I apologize, Tainara, if you're listening to this after the fact. I believe we're going to be shifting to 1 healthcare meeting per month instead of these 2. And for those of you who are curious or interested, these healthcare meetings kind of have 2 main prongs. On the one hand, we're attempting to convey some basic healthcare knowledge to this community, which is largely made up of non-healthcare folks, so that we can get a baseline understanding out in the ecosystem for the kinetics of human body movement, what healing means in a residual limb post-amputation, how the point of contact between the residual limb and the device that is being printed, what kind of design considerations need to come into play because of the physics of how that motion occurs. So that's on the one hand. On the other side, we're attempting to package and convey some a better baseline level of understanding about these devices for members of the healthcare community. Uh-oh, was that Tainara?
Yeah, she came back in. I was just gonna mention.
Hey, Tainara. How's it going?
Hey, I'm walking to work, so I have to leave, but I get back.
That's okay. That's okay. I just was reminding folks what these healthcare meetings are about. And reminded them that we've got a speaker coming in on Monday. Can you speak to what our guest is going to be addressing on Monday?
Oh yeah, Natasha, it's a huge name here in Brazil. She's a occupational therapist too, and she now doing a doctorate in electrician engineering, and she developing a lot of assistive technology for people who need. So with 3D printing, so I think she's a great speaker to us in this meeting. And so Monday you can see her talking a little bit what she makes here in Brazil.
Awesome. That's great. I'm gonna make every effort to be there. That's really exciting.
Please. Please,
awesome.
everyone.
Thank you. And yeah, I will remind folks that anyone and everyone is welcome to join these healthcare meetings. They're truly for any member of the e-NABLE community. We're trying to make this a source of a new kind of information for the folks in this network. I want to point out one post that I made on the Hub really quick. So this is something that we've been talking about for the better part of this year. Jeremy, this is part of our assistive technology program collaborations. So I've been speaking with Scout Mary for the past couple of months. He's the director of the Missouri ATP or ATAP. And what we have ironed out is what I think of as a pretty neat and tidy plan to get the ball rolling on what a group effort between the e-NABLE community and some of these targeted state Assistive Technology Act programs would look like. Folks on the call who aren't in the States, my apologies. This is a very US-centric exercise, but I think that it's something that could potentially be replicated outside of the States. Basically, in the US, every individual state in the United States has its own state-run assistive technology program. What that means is that there's a mandate for the state government to provide assistive devices for folks who require them to the degree that they are, that's within their budget. What we can do, what our community is able to do, is 3D print some of these simple devices to alleviate the burden of providing these this technology to folks. So these are typically folks who are maybe post-stroke or post-brain injury. These could be people who don't have primary diagnosis, but are simply not able to get around their homes or interact with their environment as easily. The devices in question are things like key holders, door turners, jar openers, little things that don't seem that important, but can add up to markedly reduce quality of life if you're not able to do all of these normal things. Yeah, John, what's your question?
What states have this mandate?
All of them, all 50 in territories and commonwealths.
Go, Adam, go. That's a huge.
Well, this was Jeremy's idea. I will credit where credit's due. But yeah, we're trying to get this picked up with some specific states. We've got Pennsylvania, which runs Tech Owl, which has a fabulous online repository of all of these 3D printable devices. They have CAD files in place. There's also our soft partnership with Makers Making Change and the Neil Squire organization up in Canada, where a lot of these states are using those designs as well. Scout, with the Missouri Assistive Technology Program, and we are targeting kits. So basically what we're proposing is that community members are able to prevent any of 10 devices and provide those to Scout, who will package them up into little kits, which can be distributed to rehabilitation centers, retirement homes, community centers, to be made available to folks for hands-on testing and use. From there, Scout is going to be organizing a system to acquire feedback for the utility of the devices, and we can get some impact assessments in place to say, what's actually useful for folks, what are the hot items where people really seem to be interested, and then we can start making sort of a standing request for any e-NABLE member who's maybe new to 3D printing. Seems like an ideal target, or student groups who are just getting into this idea of compassionate engineering to print some of these things. So you can see that the devices are things like a smartphone magnification stand, blister pack opener, beverage can opener, toothpaste squeezer, bottle opener, key turner, tube opener, nail clipper holder. All of these things are available to simply download and print on a commercial grade device. So I think it's a great opportunity. I think that if this takes off, this could be something that we take to maker spaces that are a little bit more public facing. So my initial thought was, because Scout is based here in Kansas City, where I am, we also have Union Station here in downtown Kansas City that has a very large maker space for students where they do a lot of public projects. If we could convince them that this would be a worthwhile activity to have high school groups come in and print some of these devices instead of just, your Pikachus and your Majora's Masks and all those cool things. That might be a really good way to start bringing in some more formalized support outside of the e-NABLE community too. So, John, another question?
Well, I'm struck by the opportunities that seem to be opening up. Thank you very much. And it occurs to me that the evangelism you're doing is great. You will amplify that if you actually do a few of them, call the local press, and get one of these reports in social media or on the news about a Boy Scout or a volunteer who's actually given one to a recipient who says, this is terrific, now I can open my polysporin. We found that those news reports bring lots of people in and people who are particularly inspired by that example. So the struggle we've had is that many of the e-NABLE people have come in attracted by the vision of prosthetics. And interestingly, they're reluctant to expand beyond prosthetics. But with some of these cases, if people are, you're going to get a new batch of people who say, wow, assistive technology, I could do one of those. And it won't be a matter of conversion. It will be a matter of attracting another cohort.
I think that's a good point. I think that there are also people who are turned off of the idea of joining the e-NABLE community because hands look fairly complicated. They look complex.
Exactly.
And Saad, I think you had your hand up first, and then Jeremy.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we've sort of taken the other approach here, where we started off with printing these devices to help with everyday activities, and Makers Making Change was a very positive source. We've made quite a few of those devices that are that you mentioned, and they have been used by people here in Singapore. And we're actually based in a library, a public library that happens to have a makerspace. And so we host weekly sort of open sessions where people can come and try these things out. So this idea of putting together a kit and sending it to different parts of the US and getting people's feedback to say which one of these is more useful than the other and to what extent, I think would be phenomenally useful even here. But to speak to the point that was just raised, that getting people familiar with printing for a purpose, or if they've just learned how to use the 3D printer and then applying that skill to more than just printing Yoda heads and keychains, there is a desire for that. And we're seeing this in our work at the library, because the library makerspace does introduce the general public to 3D printing. They offer courses for free, and Singaporeans take the course and they never come back. So what we're trying to do is offer a place for those skills to be applied towards something meaningful that could help with a person's day-to-day activities. So that's kind of the approach that we have. It's still very new. And we've been doing this with smaller devices, like what you see with Makers Making Change. And now with e-NABLE, I think we're starting to gain the confidence to be able to offer prosthetics as well. So I just wanted to mention that we're familiar with their devices and they're doing wonderful work.
That's great. Thank you. That's really good feedback. Thank you, Saad. Jeremy, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I would just recommend that with these types of devices, just like we do with our hands, I would encourage you to include material recommendations. I think PETG is still an ideal material for these. Tough PLA could also be appropriate because it's not going to be, these won't tend to be exposed to the kind of heat extremes that hands will. But in terms of strength, like if you go back to the page where you showed that tube opener, if you imagine somebody applying pressure not where he is, right on top of the cap, but either below or above that, that leverage is going to create quite a lot of stress in the part, and it will break if it's PLA.
Okay.
So I would recommend either PETG or tough PLA or something like that for these parts. They're going to hold up a lot longer that way.
As our resident expert, would you be okay dropping a comment there? Speaking to that point,
I'd be happy to. I just can't commit. I'm going to remember to do that, and I can't do it right now.
Sure.
So
Let me just make a note to comments material reference, and I would say you said PETG.
Yeah, I'd say PETG and tough PLA are the two most accessible and appropriate materials. There are other options, but those are the two primary.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I'll drop that. That sounds great. And are there, I mean, again, forgive my ignorance, are there sources for specifically PETG and tough PLA filaments where we would direct people to?
Oh, you can get them anywhere in the world. I mean, somebody should have a local, some kind of a local supplier, definitely.
Okay, gotcha. Not 3D Universe then?
that's certainly an option, but they don't need to come to 3D Universe. We're one of many. One of many. Somebody can always find that stuff locally, and the more we can avoid shipping long distance, the better.
Well, Jeremy, as soon as I actually print a device or buy a printer, I'll be sure to go to 3D Universe.
All right.
I feel like I owe you that much. Okay, let's keep on going. We're down to about 12 minutes left in the hour. So our annual report is due to the DDORA. Gosh, I have a hard time saying that. The DDORA Foundation in just a couple of weeks. I have drafted an initial summary of our activities for 2023. My apologies to Sarah and company. I had planned to make this available to you earlier this week, but again, illness, I'm going to blame that for everything. We need to get that out to the DDORA Foundation soon, because we are seeking renewal of funding from these folks. So we need to make sure that we're showing them exactly what their funds have enabled us to do. So anyone who wants to contribute to that, or if you have any ideas about specific people who have been helped, even if you're brand new to the e-NABLE community, like Saad, and if you wanted to point out the kind of activities that you are interested in doing, we would love to highlight any chapter. Just to show, gosh, we need to get like Tanya Lurch and some other people who are really prolific in getting hands to people and other activities to folks to start generating some more of these storytelling elements. But I'll make sure to make this available to the rest of the team who's drafting this report before the end of the day. I also want to note that Sarah sent out the 2023 chapter audit. Earlier this week. An email with a survey link was sent on 9/13. We already have about a dozen responses. I will note, Sarah, that a couple of people indicated that they did not receive an email. I'm sure that they just
I'm
aren't listed
aware
as
of that.
chapter leader. Okay, just making sure. Oh yeah, and you already replied. Perfect. So we will make sure everybody who needs one's getting one. I've been reading the responses on this. This survey is asking how many people are in your chapter, how many devices have you provided, what kind of challenges have you faced, how can e-NABLE support you better in accomplishing what it is you want to do. And the feedback is really insightful and really great. And I'd love to raise some of these once we close the survey in a few weeks. I would really love to see what this group thinks about some of the feedback that we've been receiving. Some really good ideas. I'm going to skip this next one for just a moment here and just call out that Wildmont, this contract is on a 3-month assessment cycle. And we're coming up on 3 months since our initial contract was signed between Wildmont and the e-NABLE community. We need to drop a recommendation for renewal on Lumio if this is something that we want to pursue. Again, as we've always said, if it's not, then no harm done. I think that we can kind of take this at face value and not be you're not going to hurt my feelings, I guess is what I'm saying, if we don't pursue renewal.
Let me take the lead by cutting you off right there. I think you guys are doing a terrific job. Your simple diligence has opened up $5,000 a year for the next 3 years, 2 years, I guess, from the Milstein Foundation.
3 years.
3 years. There you go. And what you're doing is exactly what we wanted you to do. So I think it's a no-brainer. I think you've already. So I'm going to be urging the community to support what's going on. I'm going to urge you to stop undercutting the value of what you're producing and just, be more.
It's the old millennial imposter syndrome. It's not my fault.
That's all right. You're not fooling us. This is, you have imposter syndrome. You're impersonating an imposter, but you're the real deal.
Well, thank you, John. I will say that the initial request, I think that was submitted by either you or Jeremy. I maintain that I don't think that Jason or I should be the ones submitting the request, but I'm happy to help draft up the language for that.
That's exactly right. That's right.
So I can send that to you before end of day today, just a renewal of the original language to drop on the platform. Okay, well, that's great. I will also say that Jason, do you want to give an update on some of these other, I mean, the Milstein Foundation, not to diminish that, obviously anything is great. But I know you're looking at some other much larger targets.
Yeah, sure.
Do you want to talk on that, or do you want to wait until something's a little bit further down the line?
I can spend just a minute or two. I just want to talk about the larger one that we're chasing. We almost have all of our paperwork together to fully submit for this. But the more I dug into the Autodesk and the Autodesk Foundation, they actually have an application process for one of the it's one of the branches of their company for activist investing. So basically, all the gains from their investments and being able to donate those funds here, I think that's going to be a large opportunity where we'll see much more significant numerical values. So just about wrapped up on that application process. I would expect it to be sent out next week, and then it'll be fingers crossed from there.
Great.
So, yep, I think that's the big one and the most exciting one. We've got a few irons in the fire, but that's one I'm really excited about.
And just because Jason, I think, is being a little modest, we're looking at somewhere in the mid six figures on that. And I think that we'll want some community input and some input from this group on making sure that this is as impactful an application as possible. But no, I think there's a lot of potential there. Okay, well, let me just hop back up. I did it again. I didn't leave enough time at the end. We're still hanging out on our mission statement. I'm going to, I think, just drop a summary of the discussions that we've had in the past couple of weeks, town halls around our mission statement. I think we're about 80–90% of the way there in terms of the language. We took our feedback from the survey that was sent out to the community last month. We've had a number of discussions in town halls. Just as a reminder, the purpose of attempting to get a more official mission statement is to better communicate e-NABLE's function and place in the world to potential partners, to potential grant authorizers, to potential funding partners, anyone who we're going to be asking for assistance in project work or in receiving funds from. They need to have a nut graph. They need to have a clear idea about what it is we're doing in the world. So that's the purpose of trying to get this mission statement together. But please keep your eyes on the forum in the coming week or so, where I will drop a summary of this back and forth process and try to solicit some more insight from the larger community. Please feel free to drop responses and your own opinions about what direction we should go. We've got about 4 minutes left. Does anyone else have any questions or comments before we close the call? Okay. Well, once again, thank you to Saad, and thank you to everyone for joining and participating today. Please feel free to reach out to me directly via the hub. If you're not familiar with the messaging system on the hub, you can just go up to that little envelope icon at the top of the webpage, type in a person's name. I realize I'm listed as e-NABLE events here. My name is Adam Jennings. And if you have questions for anyone else, please feel free to shoot them a line. But otherwise, thank you all so much and have a great day.
You.
Alrighty.